Hello, welcome to the Daily News Ukraine channel. Today is December 16th and our daily review of news about Ukraine. 9 power generating facilities have been damaged as a result of Russia's massive missile attack on Ukraine today. Power companies are increasing electricity production at nuclear plants. Ukrainian Minister of Energy German Galushchenko announced this during a nationwide telethon on Ukrainian TV channels, according to Ukrinform. Nearly 9 power generating facilities have been damaged. We are currently verifying these damages. Corresponding stations and substations transmitting electricity were also damaged. This limited production at the facilities primarily of nuclear generation. We are recording all this and will modify this situation so that to increase production in the coming hours, he noted. The minister also noted that the Russian Federation, as usual, is trying to attack power generation, electricity distribution and transmission facilities, and called it another terrorist attack. As reported, on December 16, Russia launched a new massive missile attack on Ukraine. Due to damage to energy facilities, emergency power outages were introduced across the country. The Russian troops killed 14 civilians and injured 30 more in Ukraine on December 15. Kyrylo Tymoshenko, deputy head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, published a relevant report on Telegram, referring to data provided by regional military administrations, according to Ukrinform. In particular, 3 civilians were killed and 10 more were injured in Dnipropetrovsk region, 7 were killed and 7 were injured in Donetsk region, 4 civilians were injured in Kyiv region, 1 was killed in Kharkiv region, 3 were killed and 9 were injured in Kherson region. As Ukrinform reported, 7 regions in Ukraine came under enemy shelling on December 15. At least 2 people were killed and 8 more were injured when a Russian missile hit a residential building in Kryvyi Rih. Valentin Reznichenko, head of the Dnipropetrovsk Regional Military Administration, wrote this on Telegram, Ukrinform reports. The morning attack on Kryvyi Rih killed 2 people. 8 people were injured. They are in the hospital, the report says. Reznichenko noted that among those injured were a boy and a girl aged 3 and a girl aged 7. Rescuers continue to clear the rubble of a house damaged by a Russian missile. There may still be people there. Later, Alexander Vilkel, the head of the Kryvyi Rih military administration, wrote on Telegram that a Russian missile destroyed an energy infrastructure facility in Kryvyi Rih. He also said that at least 2 people were killed and 8 more, including 4 children, were injured as a result of the Russian missile attack. Photo, Valentin Reznichenko, Telegram Due to emergency power outages, the Kyiv subway has suspended transport services until the end of the day. The Kyiv City State Administration said this in a statement on Telegram, Ukrinform reports. Due to damage to the energy system and emergency power outages, subway trains will not run until the end of the day. At the same time, the underground stations will operate as bomb shelters, the report says. The city authorities advise Kyiv residents to use ground public transport to move around the city. As reported by Ukrinform on Friday, December 16, the Russian invaders fired more than 60 missiles across Ukraine. About 40 missiles were detected in the airspace over Kyiv, of which 37 were shot down by air defense forces. On the morning of December 16, Russian troops fired 21 missiles at the city of Zaporizhzhia and the Zaporizhzhia district. Andriy Kurtiv, secretary of the Zaporizhzhia City Council, announced this on Telegram, Ukrinform reports. This morning, the insidious enemy attacked Zaporizhzhia region. Literally in half an hour, the damned Rushists fired 21 missiles at Zaporizhzhia and the Zaporizhzhia district, he wrote. Read also, air defense forces shoot down 60 of 76 Russian missiles. Zaluzhnyi Kurtiv noted that missile attacks caused power cuts in some areas of the city. According to preliminary data, no one was injured. According to him, as of now, electricity supply has already been resumed. Kurtiv also thanked the air defense forces for their skillful work. Thanks to them, not all missiles fired at Zaporizhzhia reached their targets today. As reported, on Friday, December 16, Russia launched another massive missile attack on Ukraine, targeting energy facilities. Emergency power outages were introduced across the country. On Friday, December 16, Ukraine's air defense forces shot down 60 of 76 missiles launched by Russia across Ukraine. This was announced by Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine Valery Zaluzhnyi on Facebook, Ukrinform reports. According to preliminary data, this morning from the areas of the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea, the enemy fired 76 missiles, including 72 cruise missiles, Kh-101, caliber, Kh-22, and 4 guided air-to-surface missiles, Kh-59/Kh-31P, at Ukraine's critical infrastructure, he wrote. According to Zaluzhnyi, 60 enemy missiles were destroyed by the forces and means of the anti-aircraft missile forces of the Air Force and air defense of the ground forces. Missile terror and the enemy's daring attempts to break through Kyiv's air defenses will not force us to lay down our arms, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces emphasized. As reported, on Friday, December 16, Russia launched another massive missile attack on Ukraine. Due to damage to energy facilities, emergency power outages were introduced across the country. Due to the full mobilization ongoing in the Russian Federation, Ukraine must be ready for any actions by the aggressor power. Andriy Yusov, a spokesman for the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense, spoke of this on the air of the national telephone, Ukrinform reports. Mobilization, carried out in the Russian Federation, not partial but full-fledged, provides additional human resources that will be used as cannon fodder, said Yusov. Therefore, further offensive actions using a new reserve of mobilized personnel are possible. We are dealing with a large army of an aggressor and terrorist state. Therefore, we must be prepared, he said. Read also, Russia changing war tactics under Surovikin's leadership, commander of Ukraine's ground forces with strikes on energy and critical civilian infrastructure. The enemy is trying to compensate for the successes of Ukraine's armed forces and the failures of Russia's full-scale offensive. In addition, these acts of terror could, in Russia's opinion, coerce Ukraine to some negotiations on the aggressor's terms. Regarding the conditions for talks, Yusov noted that they could only take place after all invasion forces withdraw from Ukraine, after all damages are paid for, criminals are brought to justice, and nuclear weapons are transferred under international control. Only under these conditions are certain security guarantees possible for the Russian Federation. It's like the Budapest Memorandum. But since such guarantees will be provided by civilized nations, including Ukraine, they will be respected, the spokesman added. As reported today, Friday morning Russia launched a massive missile attack on Ukraine. On Friday, December 16, nearly 40 missiles were detected in the airspace over Kyiv, of which 37 were shot down by air defense forces. This is reported by Ukrinform with reference to the Kyiv City Military Administration. Kyiv survived one of the largest missile attacks since the full-scale invasion. About 40 missiles were spotted in the capital's airspace. 37 of them were destroyed by air defense forces, the statement says. Information about destruction and casualties is being verified. Read also, for each missile or drone launched by Russia, Ukraine must receive armored vehicles. Kuleba. It is already known that in the Dniprovsky district, at least one person was injured. The individual received medical assistance on the spot. As reported by Ukrinform, on the morning of December 16, the Russian invaders fired about 60 missiles at Ukraine. U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Bridget Brink has confirmed the first delivery of emergency repair equipment from the United States. That's according to the ambassador's tweet posted on Friday, December 16, Ukrinform reports. Grateful for the work of Ukraine's air defense amid more escalatory Russian attacks this morning on civilian infrastructure in Kyiv and around the country. First U.S. shipment of emergency repair equipment has already arrived. Ukraine will prevail, Brink tweeted. Read also, Ukraine needs EU help to purchase gas, electricity. President Zelensky, as reported by Ukrinform, on Friday, December 16, the Russian Federation launched more than 60 missiles at Ukraine. Electricity supply was cut off to many regions. For each Russian missile or drone aimed at Ukraine and Ukrainians, a howitzer, tank, and armored vehicle must be delivered to Ukraine. This was stated by the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, Ukrinform reports, referring to the top diplomat's Twitter. For each Russian missile or drone aimed at Ukraine and Ukrainians, there must be a howitzer delivered to Ukraine, a tank for Ukraine, an armored vehicle for Ukraine. This would effectively end Russian terror against Ukraine and restore peace and security in Europe and beyond, said the head of Ukrainian diplomacy. Read also, invaders launch 3 missile strikes on Kharkiv region infrastructure as reported by Ukrinform. On Friday, December 16, the Russian Federation launched more than 60 missiles at Ukraine. Electricity supply was cut off to many regions. Today we were talking about those news. 9 power generating facilities damaged by missile attacks, Galushchenko. Russian forces kill 14 civilians, injure 30 more in Ukraine over past day. Missile attack on Kryvyi Rih, number of those injured grows to 8. Kyiv subway suspends transport services until the end of the day. Russian troops fired 21 missiles at Zaporizhzhia city and district. Air Defense Forces shoot down 60 of 76 Russian missiles, Zaluzhnyi. Russia may use freshly mobilized soldiers for new offensive on Ukraine. Intel. Of nearly 40 Russian missiles launched at Kyiv, 37 downed. Ukraine receives from U.S. first batch of emergency repair equipment. Ambassador. For each missile or drone launched by Russia, Ukraine must receive armored vehicles, Kuleba.